Hello, everybody. This is Alicia. I work with the ARC Minnesota in St. Paul, Minnesota, and today we are here to discuss understanding trusts and the ABLE accounts. This is a webinar, and I will be covering Supplemental Needs Trust, Special Needs Trust, Pooled Trust, and the ABLE account. You should be able to see my screen, so please let me know if there are any technical difficulties. Today, we will again be talking about trust and financial pieces and for planning for the future and for financial security in regards to supporting people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. There will be time for questions and answers at the end of this webinar. We've chosen to answer all questions towards the end of the presentation, but please don't hesitate as questions pop up to enter them into the questions tab. So enter questions as they pop up, and at the end we'll take some time to get to all of the questions that you guys have. So today we will have an overview on some of the future planning services that the ARC Minnesota offers to families. We will also talk about what a trust is, why trusts are created, the various types of trusts and resources in the trust. We will discuss what an ABLE account is, what the difference is in an ABLE account and a trust, the cost, limitations, how to set it up, and of course some questions and answers. Again, please don't hesitate to ask any questions through this process. I'll just get to them at the end of the presentation. The ARC Minnesota has been around for many, many years. The ARC Minnesota started as a grassroots effort of parents that had children with developmental disabilities and wanted more for their kids. They saw that there weren't very many community services. There weren't a lot of ways for their children to live happily, successfully at home. So parents got together and created the ARC. To make sure that their kids had the services and supports to live at home and in the community where they wanted to live and where it made them happy. So really today our mission is quite the same. We are here to promote and protect the rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in whatever way that is. And through our services is how we can support people and families in that. So we offer information and assistance. I say we're the first stop shop for anything disability related. So you can come to the ARC, you can call us, and you can ask really any questions. If you're hitting any resistance, any red tape, and you need to know how to get medical assistance or guardianship or social security or educational advocacy, you can certainly reach out for our assistance. We also are very involved in public policy and community engagement, help people with healthcare access, abuse prevention. We have a resource center. We promote self-advocacy and have self-advocacy groups, and we also work a lot in planning services. So we help people think about the future, which is a lot of what this presentation covers today. We are not attorneys here at the ARC. My role as an advocate is to help people get information that they need to make an informed decision about the services and supports that are available to them. So while I have a good amount of knowledge in trusts and wills and healthcare directives and the ABLE accounts, I'm not an attorney. So I'm here to give you the information that you need to make an informed choice so that you can go to an attorney and you can say, this is what I want with the information that I have. So please don't take this as legal advice as much as information sharing, because I do not have a law degree. So what is future planning? A lot of people turn to the ARC for support in future planning because they're asking many of these questions. We developed our future planning services back in the early 2000s when families were coming to us and they were saying, I'm the sole caretaker for my son or daughter with a disability. What happens when I pass away? What will happen when I'm gone? There's so many things that I do to support my kid right now. I want to make sure that they're living a good life in the future. And right now, what can I do? How can I do that? It can be a really daunting task. It can be really overwhelming to think about what you want to do and how you have to do it and all the steps you need to take. So we can help people navigate that and figure out what steps to take and when to take them. People also consider future planning to even think about what the future can look like. What are the possibilities? You know, when you are so focused on making sure that your child is healthy and safe in this moment, sometimes it can be really overwhelming to look at the future. So we can help people talk through that as well as setting things in motion. Where do I begin? How can I prepare as much as possible? And then that whole conversation of who will be there. You know, I'm doing so many things in my life right now to make sure that my child is supported. I know that this is a lot of work. Who can do this piece and who will do this piece when I'm no longer here? That's a big conversation as well that we have in future planning with families. It's different for each family, for each person. So there's no golden ticket, there's no one answer for each person, but we have a specific conversation with each family that we work with. So families can gain some peace of mind around that future planning piece. So if you come to the ARC, we have a variety of services and supports that we can offer to families. The things listed here are more hand-in-hand services that we offer to families when thinking about the future. Of course, you can come to the ARC and get free advocacy services or information and assistance anytime that you need it. These planning services are more in-depth, where we really help families walk through the process. So our Future Life Options program was our first service that we developed in 2006 that really started from that question I mentioned before, who's going to care for my child and who's going to do all these pieces when I'm no longer in a position to be able to do that. So our Future Life Options program is our all-encompassing future planning program that involves caregivers writing down everything in their head on paper. Because you've got a lot of knowledge that's floating around in your head, things that you know specifically that really nobody else knows. So our task in Future Life Options, part of it, is to write down all of those things that you know. You know every March you have to do this specific paperwork form. And then you know every day at bedtime you have to give this specific medication. So we help create what we call a planning guide. So you're putting down everything on your head on paper. And that service also involves person-centered planning, which is helping think about the future. So Future Life Options, we talk with families about legal planning, financial planning, and what makes a good life for their child. Again, that's the all-encompassing future planning process. The Transition Vision Project is a process in which a person who is 14 to 21 can engage in. And this Transition Vision Project helps students think about how am I going to move from school life to adult life? Because it's really overwhelming. For anybody turning 18, it's really overwhelming to think about what you want for the rest of your life and to transition from one part of your life to adult part, from school life to adult life. So we support students in thinking about what kind of job do you want? Let's even start that conversation. What kind of job do you want? What are your hopes and dreams? And let's create a step-by-step plan to help you get there with the supports that you have and that you need in your life. Then person-centered planning is basically what it says. It is helping somebody think about their life and planning and having that conversation in a way that's person-centered. So the person is at the center of their plan. They are saying, this is what I want for my life. These are my hopes and my dreams. And their network is there to help them figure out how to get there. So person-centered planning puts the person in the center of that conversation about what do you want for your life. And then we talk about what kind of supports do you need and how can we help you get there. So person-centered planning is an overall facilitated conversation in which the person is at the center. And we can create steps and help determine what actual supports are needed. Person-centered planning can happen at any time and really for any reason. So if somebody is moving, if they want a new job, if they just want to think about their life and their future and want to gather together and create a new exciting path, person-centered planning is a wonderful option. We also have the Transition to Adulthood workbook. This workbook was created when parents were coming to us, Parents and caregivers were coming to us and saying, transition when my child is 14 to 21 involves a lot of juggling. I am being told to do medical assistance, to do guardianship, to do Social Security. From every angle, there's different things that I'm quote unquote supposed to be doing. So this Transition to Adulthood workbook is a self-led workbook in which parents and caregivers can guide themselves through the process and what specifically they need to do for their child. So you've heard about medical assistance. Is that something that you have to do right now? This workbook will guide you through all of those questions. The Good Set Online tool is a 17-question interest quiz online that's very visually based. So it has questions like, what things are important to you at home? What do you like to do for work? And all of the answers are populated by icons. So people can select icons for the questions. And then at the end, you get a graphic map based on your answers to the questions and your preferences. So then that's a place to start where you can bring that to an IEP meeting and you can say, this is generally what I want and what makes me happy. How can we continue this so that I'm living a good, happy life and that I can get a job and live a life that I want? We also have a master pooled trust at the ARC Minnesota. So we will go into the master pooled trust more, but just know that this is something that the ARC has and we can support people with. Again, please, any questions throughout the presentation, please go ahead and pop into the questions box and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. So we are going to start out by talking about what is a trust. So this webinar is titled Understanding Trust and Able Accounts. A trust is an estate planning tool specifically developed for a purpose of safeguarding an amount of money. When it comes to special needs planning, a trust, a supplemental needs trust, a special needs trust, these trusts are created to preserve government benefits and to make it so that you can save money for your child and not worry about impacting the services that you've worked so hard to secure. So as you probably know, medical assistance, you can't have more than $3,000 to your name and assets. That's what medical assistance has their asset limit cap at. Social Security, SSI, has theirs as $2,000. So that means that you, as a person, as you're collecting Social Security or medical assistance, you can't have more than $2,000 or $3,000 to your name. Which means that when parents and caregivers are thinking about the future and saying, you know, someday I would like to leave my child behind money because I know how much it costs to make sure they have everything they need to live a good, happy life. A trust is a wonderful resource then because you can establish trust, put money directly into the trust, and not have it affect or not worry about having it affecting your child's Social Security or medical assistance benefits. So that, in a nutshell, is what a trust is. It's a way for you to put money aside, for other people to put money aside, and make sure that those government benefits that you've worked hard for and that your child needs stay in their life. There are various kinds of trusts when you're thinking about future planning for somebody with an intellectual or developmental disability. So the ones that we talk about are a special needs trust, a supplemental needs trust, and a master pooled trust. These will be the ones that we'll talk about today. So a special needs trust is likely the term that you have heard over and over about something that you have to set up. So you probably hear from other parents, from support workers that you need to set up a special needs trust. So Minnesota has very specific laws within trusts and how they're set up. So it's important for you to know what I am covering in today's webinar is specific to Minnesota law. Other states have different rules and regulations and language in their statute that makes trust names different and function differently. So just know that this is specific to Minnesota. A special needs trust is a first party trust. And the first party trust, that means the first party is your child. So the money is theirs. This is a first party trust. We affectionately refer to this trust as an oopsie trust. It's for primarily reactive planning. So a special needs trust would happen in a situation in which your child gets a payback from Social Security, or they get a settlement from a court case or an insurance claim. So your child suddenly gets this lump sum of money and you say, oh, no, you can't have that much money because you can't have more than $2,000 in the bank. Otherwise, it will affect your benefits. You want your child to have this money to have access to it, but they just can't have it directly in their name. That's why we call it an oopsie trust. Oops, you have that money in your name, you can't. So we're going to develop a special needs trust. Then we're going to put that money in the special needs trust. So it's reactive planning, and it's a way for your child to still have access to that money and not have it affect their benefits. So again, special needs trust, first party trust. First party is your child. It also has a payback clause. So a special needs trust, the payback clause means that, let's say that your child passes away and there's still $10,000 left in that special needs trust because they haven't spent that money yet. That $10,000 goes back to pay medical assistance and Social Security for any services accrued over their lifetime. So this amount of money first has to go back to pay back the government for any money that they accrue over their lifetime. And usually this means the remainder of whatever is left over in that special needs trust. So when you think of a special needs trust, know that it's a reactive planning tool. The money at one point was technically your child's, and then it's going into a trust. And it has the payback clause. So it has that function in it that says once you pass away, if there's leftover money, it has to go to the government first. That is Minnesota's special needs trust. The supplemental needs trust is the tool that we typically recommend for families when they're coming to us and saying that they want to do proactive future planning. So a supplemental needs trust is a proactive planning tool, and this is called the third-party trust. Now, a third-party trust means that it's everybody except for your child's money. So the supplemental needs trust can only hold money that never actually technically was the child's, the beneficiaries. So this situation, the supplemental needs trust, is something that you would set up as you're proactively thinking about your child's future, and you're saying, someday I'm going to pass away and I would like to leave my life insurance policy to them, or my 401k, anything that's left over on that. I want to make sure that they have, half of my estate, just like my other child. So you would make sure that all of the beneficiaries on your 401k and on your life insurance policy would all go directly to the supplemental needs trust. You set this up with an attorney, and it's again a proactive planning tool. It's intentional planning for the future. And so it gives you a way to create that safeguard for that money and let everybody know that that supplemental needs trust exists. So grandparents, aunts and uncles, anybody except for the beneficiary can put money into that trust. So there is no payback clause with the supplemental needs trust. The supplemental needs trust, if there's any money left over in that upon the beneficiary's passing, the trustee or whoever sets it up can distinguish who the beneficiary of that trust is. So let's say you set up the supplemental needs trust and the beneficiary passes away and there's still $10,000. You could say that that $10,000 is going to go to their sibling or to a charitable organization of your choosing. The Supplemental Needs Trust is also set up by an attorney, of which the ARC has a list of attorneys that we are more than happy to send out and give to people. One of the most important notes that I'm going to make today during this webinar is to say that it is vitally important for you to work with an attorney that knows specifics of special needs estate planning. There are so many attorneys out there that are good, wonderful people that are in your neighborhood, that's even your sister, that is a practicing attorney and probably a really good attorney that says, oh, hey, I see that you need help in estate planning and I really want to help you out. I can figure out a supplemental needs trust. I would really highly recommend that you work with somebody who already has an established grounding in setting up supplemental and special needs trusts. Since these trusts are set up specifically to preserve government benefits, the language in the trust to establish it has to be very, very specific. There has to be specific language set in specific ways. So if somebody doesn't necessarily know the intricacies of how these trusts work, they can unintentionally write something in that could negate the whole process and functioning of the trust. So please work with somebody who is from our list or who you know has a good grounding in special needs estate planning, because if you're going to go through the process of setting it up and making sure that your child's money is always going to be safeguarded, it's important to know that it's done correctly. So as a review, a special needs trust is a first party oopsie trust. It's a reactive trust. Your child has money and they can't anymore, and they can't because of their government benefits, so you set up a special needs trust. A supplemental needs trust is when you're proactively planning, you're thinking about the future, and you want to make sure that down the line, whenever grandma wants to give, your child money, or you're passing away and you want to make sure that your child is taken care of, that money can go into the trust. Both of these trusts are managed by a trustee. Again, please remember to put any questions that you have in the question box for the webinar, and I will get to them at the end of the presentation. The Master Pooled Trust is a service that the ARC of Minnesota has and offers to families. So both of the trusts that I talked about before, a special needs trust and a supplemental needs trust, can be held within a Master Pooled Trust. So what a Master Pooled Trust is, it's a nonprofit organization that acts as a trustee. So whereas the Supplemental Needs Trust and the Special Needs Trust, if you were to go to an attorney and set those up independently on your own, which you certainly can do, and many, many people do, you would be able to choose a trustee of your choice. You would be able to say, I'm going to be the trustee until my passing, and then I can leave suggestions of who I would like to act as the trustee in the future after my passing. Whereas the Master Pooled Trust, it's the same trust, but it's organized and managed by the ARC of Minnesota. Lutheran Social Services also has a local Master Pooled Trust as another option as well. Master Pooled Trusts are often chosen by families if they don't feel like they have a good person that they would like to pass off that responsibility once they're no longer able to act in that capacity. It also gives people some comfort that it's managed by a whole organization and not just one person. The Master Pooled Trust has joiner fees and monthly fees as long as the trust is funded. The cost can be more effective in setting up of the trust. To set up a Master Pooled Trust is less expensive than setting up a special or supplemental needs trust. Long term, the Master Pooled Trust can cost more money than the special and the supplemental needs trust. So there's a lot of things to consider as you're thinking about, would I rather have one trustee if I just set up my own special needs or supplemental needs trust, or would I rather have the organization and do a Master Pooled Trust? So these are things that you can consider along the way. There's no one right answer for people. It's just, again, good that you know that you have options. Okay, so these are the various trusts, and the Master Pool Trust, the Supplemental Needs Trust, and the Special Needs Trust, and we'll circle back to those a little bit later. And now we're going to talk about creating an ABLE account. So an ABLE account is a fairly new service offered to people with disabilities. So the web address is right there, savewithable.com/Minnesota/home. The ABLE account, ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. We just call it the ABLE account. It functions as a checking account for people to save their own money. So we include it in this webinar because it's a wonderful resource for people to be able to get past that $2,000 asset limit threshold if they're on Social Security. So if you're on Social Security and you can only save $2,000, it's in a way forcing you to live in a life of poverty, because how could I ever work my way off of Social Security? How could I ever save up for a new car to get a better job, or a new computer to get a better job, if I can only have $2,000 to my name? So the ABLE account is a checking account in which people can save $15,000 a year, $100,000 over their lifetime, without it counting against their assets for Social Security or medical assistance. So if you're setting up the ABLE account to make sure that you're safeguarding money from Social Security and medical assistance to save money, you can put $15,000 in there each year. So $15,000 the first year, $15,000 the second year, which would be $30,000, so on and so forth, to a max of $100,000 over the person's lifetime. So we say that this is not an estate planning tool because it's a checking account. It comes with a debit card. It promotes self-determination and money management skills for people because it's their account. It's an account that is my money. You know, my parents can put my Christmas money and birthday money and stuff in there, but it's my account. It's my money. It's going to give me tools to be able to learn this. My parents can support me in it, but it's going to give me the ability to say that this is my money and this is how I want to spend it. Whereas with a trust, all of that money is managed through a trustee. Many states have their own ABLE accounts. Minnesota's ABLE program launched in January of 2017, so it's about a year and a half old now. One of the things I want to note is that you must go to this website to set up the ABLE account. If you go to your local bank and you say, I want to set up the ABLE account, they won't have any idea what you're talking about because it's a fairly new structure and it's specific to people with disabilities. So you have to go to that website and set it up. It's just a few questions. It's fairly easy. Somebody will call to confirm that you want the account, and then you can set it up and move forward from there. Other details about the ABLE account. If you are not worried about staying under that asset limit threshold for Social Security, you can put a max amount in that account of $350,000. The ABLE account was written off of the same details and concept as the 529 account. So there's a lot of similarities in the functions. It was written off the same concept. If you receive Social Security, you can only have $100,000 in your account. Maximum over your lifetime, and the maximum contribution is $15,000 a year. $14,000 was 2017, $15,000 a year is 2018. So I'm sorry, that's misleading on the PowerPoint. Beneficiaries may only open one account. So that is important for you to consider as you're thinking about what kind of ABLE account you want to open. Many states have their own ABLE account. So if you didn't like the options that Minnesota had for their ABLE account, you could go to Indiana, or you could go to Florida, or you could go to Ohio, and you could see how theirs is different. Minnesota's has some really wonderful options. They have the debit card feature, and then there's also investment opportunities as well. One is eligible for the ABLE account if they are entitled to SSI or SSDI because of their disability. And one of the requirements with the ABLE account currently is that you had to have a disability before the age of 26. So if you acquired a disability after 26, unfortunately at this point the ABLE account isn't a resource for you. They are working in the legislature to change this rule, but as it currently stands, you must have a disability before the age of 26 to set up an ABLE account. You must have a disability, and you can only have one ABLE account. As I mentioned before, it's similar to a 529's college savings account. So if you set up a 529's college savings account for your child when they were just a baby, and then you learn later on that they have a disability and maybe college isn't, or that money in the 529 account isn't needed for college funding anymore, you can transfer money from a 529 account to an ABLE account. Also, the individual who is setting up the ABLE account must be able to manage his or her own finances. With their permission and with the person's desire, parents and caregivers can most certainly support them. And as long as the individual whose account that is says, hey, yeah, sure, please, we'll log on every Tuesday and you can help me manage my accounts. Certainly, definitely, you can get support in that, just like with any other account. But primarily, the ABLE account is the individual's, and they must be able to say, yes, I want an ABLE account. This is something that I can do with the support from those in my life. We recommend families setting up ABLE accounts with their children, of course, and if at all possible, doing it before a person's 18th birthday. Makes the process just a little bit more streamlined and quicker. And then after the person's 18th birthday, if you go on and you sign up, the person has to be the one to be answering those questions to set up the ABLE account, and they have to talk to the representative from the ABLE account to say, yes, I want this account. This is a helpful chart that we have put together to simply explain many of the pieces that I just went over for the Special Needs Trust, the Supplemental Needs Trust, and the ABLE account. This trust comparison chart, we say, is a very high level information, but it can create some clarification. So as you see, there's a Special Needs Trust, a Supplemental Needs Trust, and an ABLE account. Each of these are standalone structures. With the Special Needs Trust and the Supplemental Needs Trust, you can either create that as a private trust, so you can have an attorney help you set it up and you can be the trustee, or you can work with the ARC of Minnesota or Lutheran Social Services to set up a pool trust. So you'll see that both of those, the private trust and the pool trust, act the same aside from who the trustee is. And so for this Special Needs Trust, Supplemental Needs Trust, ABLE accounts. Again, the Special Needs Trust is a reactive planning tool when the person has money in their name that they can't, because then they'll lose their eligibility for benefits because of the asset limit. So Special Needs Trust is that oopsie trust. The Supplemental Needs Trust is a proactive planning tool that parents and caregivers can set up as they're thinking about the future, as they're thinking about leaving money to their children. Another note is a lot of people will establish a Supplemental Needs Trust now and say leave it unfunded for 20, 40 years until somebody funds it. So you can set up this trust and put like $20, $40 in to establish it as a trust and then leave it unfunded for many, many years. A lot of people do that. People also set up a Supplemental Needs Trust and put some money in there and start spending that money now so that they can give a hint to a future trustee about how they would like that money in that Supplemental Needs Trust to function. So again, a Special Needs Trust and a Supplemental Needs Trust are estate planning tools, whereas the ABLE account is a checking account that you can spend money on, and it's the person's own money to be able to manage. So the ABLE account is a here and now financial tool, and the Special Needs Supplemental Needs Trust are estate planning tools. So I have mentioned the professional pool of attorneys. Again, very important to work with an attorney that knows what they're doing in this field and knows the specifics of the law. So please call us if you would like that list of attorneys. It's not on our website because we keep it up to date. Quite often we're making sure that the attorneys on there are working with families and giving people the support that they want and are actively taking clients. So we email that to families directly. I can also send you the trust comparison chart. So this chart I can send you as a PDF. So please reach out if you have any questions. We also have a form, what can I buy with a trust, which gives you general overall ideas of what money can be spent on a trust and what can't be spent on the trust. Really quickly, the trust and the ABLE account, both of those, they can pay for and they can cover things that aren't covered already by medical assistance or Social Security. So the example that I like to use is medical assistance will cover 2 dentist cleanings a year. Let's say that you have a root canal and the medical assistance isn't going to cover the root canal. That money could come out of the Supplemental Needs Trust because it's not something that medical assistance already covers. It's additional, it's supplementary, so you can use that money in that capacity. So for any of those forms, please call the ARC and we'll be more than happy to give that to you. SaveWithAble.com/Minnesota is the resource in setting up that trust. And now we are going to leave some time for questions. We went through this content really quickly, so I am sure that you have a lot of questions or things that are on your mind right now. So please, please ask any and all that come up. I see that there's one question in the box right now, so I will read that, but please continue to send them. Okay, so the first question is, how can I contact someone and talk about this? You can, so my name is Alicia. I work with the ARC Minnesota, and you can call the number right here. So 952-920-0855. You can also email us at info@arcminnesota.org. So the ABLE account, that was the next question. ABLE account web address right there. Okay, so the next question is to clarify, if my child is unable to manage their own finances, and that is one of my duties as guardian, is an ABLE account not an option? So this is a really wonderful question. And it's got a lot of details in it. So as a guardian, if you're a guardian, you are in charge of making decisions for another person. Guardians in Minnesota can have up to 7 powers. So you don't have to choose all of those powers. You can do a limited guardianship, which would mean that you would just cover specific powers under guardianship. But let's say that you are a guardian of all 7 powers. The court assumes that you're going to be in a position to financially help your child manage that money. So the court assumes that you're going to be a financial support in the way of helping them know how to manage their money. Although there's no specific guardianship power that covers finances exclusively. This has gotten into some complicated ground in Minnesota with the ABLE accounts and the way that it's set up. But let's say that you are guardian and your child wants to set up an ABLE account. Go through the process. Still, they have to be there. They have to be able to say, yes, I want the ABLE account, and I can manage it with the support of somebody. So if your child is able to do that, yes, definitely go through the process with them. Make sure that you've talked with them about what the ABLE account is, what it can do, all of those things. Let's say that you know that your child needs more assistance than that. The ABLE account actually has a process within it that you can call representatives at the Minnesota ABLE account, and you can become, in a way, a power of attorney. on the ABLE account. It looks very, very similar, but just call the office and say that you want to be a designated representative on the ABLE account, and they'll send you a form. And this form it functions a lot like a power of attorney, and it's officially saying that I, as account holder, so I as Molly, I have a developmental disability, and so I'm going to open up the ABLE account. And me as Molly, I would like official support from my parent. So you can go and you can ask for that paperwork to become a designated representative and have that official support from your parent. I hope that answers your question. Are there any other questions on this information? Thank you all for being here today and tuning in. We buzzed through this information, but a lot of times people feel really lost in all of this information and this financial planning, and it's really important to think about what your options are and to know your options before you work with an attorney, just so that you know kind of what your family needs and what your child needs. So we recommend that families start thinking about this process wherever they're at in life. There's never a bad time to start, or a time that's too late, or a time that's too early. I talked to a family last week that their child is 2 and they're setting up a supplemental needs trust. And I talk to families often where they're in their 60s and they're setting up that supplemental needs trust. So never too early, too late. The Future Life Options program, if you feel like this is a lot of information and you need support in really managing all of the pieces, the Future Life Options program is all-encompassing. We offer that legal and financial guidance, as well as thinking about the future and talking about those pieces, like who will be caregiver and all of the things that you do currently. So another note, along with the information about the trusts, is wills. So as you are setting up a trust, we recommend that you work with an attorney that will help you set up the supplemental needs trust and your will at the same time. So once you establish the supplemental needs trust, you're going to have that as a vehicle in which to save money for your child that won't affect their government benefits. You have to reflect this in your will. And you have to have very specific language. So your will has to say something along the effects of, in the event of my passing, I disregard my daughter, Molly, to receive any of my estate. In lieu of Molly receiving my estate, I would like my estate to go to Molly's Supplemental Needs Trust. So you have to say in your will that you do not want any money to go to your child directly. Because let's say that you forgot about a 401k, or you forgot about a pension that your grandpa had that was left to you, and then upon your passing it goes down. You want to make sure in your will that you are stating that this supplemental needs trust exists, and you want all of your estate planning money to go to that vehicle, that trust, instead of directly to your daughter. Another thing to consider is how you want your estate to be divvied up. Let's say that you have 3 children. Some families will they want their 2 children without disabilities to get 20% each. And then they want their child with a disability, that remaining 60% to go to the trust. That's a consideration as well, because you know that your child with a disability is going to need more financial support over the long run. This is definitely a conversation that needs to happen with the whole family so that everybody is on board and approves of that. But that's another thing to consider, that as you're setting up a supplemental needs trust, a pooled trust, any of those trusts, to make sure that it's reflected in your will. Okay, there's another question that came through. Can you clarify the payback clause? On the comparison chart, it looks like it says a special needs trust with a master pool trust doesn't require a payback. Let's see. It does say that. It is It's supposed to say yes. Sorry about that. We'll have to change that. The special needs trust does have the payback clause. The pooled trust, the ARC Minnesota has to make sure that we're paid for all of the work that we do to manage that trust, but there is still that payback clause. So there's the payback clause where whatever money is left over upon the passing of the beneficiary has to first go out to pay back medical assistance and any government benefits that that person has accrued over their lifetime, which almost always is everything. It's really rare that there's anything left over that would go to a beneficiary. Okay, another question. With an ABLE account, how much would a minimum deposit be to put in? Will the site tell me all of that? Once you go through the process of setting it up and you have that call with the representative from the ABLE account, you'll know. I don't know the exact amount, but I think it's like $20 to set up the ABLE account. So clearly the ABLE account is much less of an expensive option. So if you wanted to help your child set that up now to manage some money, learn some financial planning tools before they're 18, you know, those are great skills to start learning. The ABLE account is a really inexpensive, good option to have. Also, another note, a lot of people have, and you know, every situation is depending, but a lot of people have and should have the Supplemental Needs Trust and the ABLE account, because the Supplemental Needs Trust is, again, that future planning tool, that estate planning tool, and that ABLE account is that checking account, that resource right now. So there's no reason why you couldn't have both. Okay, any other questions about trusts, ABLE accounts, wills, other pieces of future planning that we usually mention in this conversation are healthcare directives and powers of attorney. A healthcare directive is a really wonderful tool and conversation that the ARC believes everybody should do. So the ARC believes that parents and caregivers should definitely have a healthcare directive and have that conversation, but a person with a disability should also have a healthcare directive. Even if you have a guardianship over medical care, we still recommend a healthcare directive because it gives you the opportunity to have a conversation with your child about what they would want their healthcare decisions to look like and what they would want that to be. You know, it's still really important that your child has a say in that, just like it's important to you that you have a say in your end-of-life care. Additionally, if you're guardian of medical decisions, filling out a healthcare directive can be incredibly valuable because it gives you the opportunity to have that conversation when you're in a calm state of mind. If you're in the hospital and you have to make a decision that was covered in the healthcare directive, it's probably safe to assume that you're in a really heightened state. You're stressed out, you're emotional, and the decisions that you make in that moment may be different than the decisions you would make alternatively in a situation that you're having a conversation aside from being in the hospital and being in that moment. So a healthcare directive is really important for caregivers and people with disabilities to fill out regardless of the status of guardianship, because again, it gives you that opportunity to have that discussion. We recommend the Honoring Choices Minnesota website. That's a really wonderful resource. If you would like us, I can also send you a form that we recommend to families. There's a short form for a healthcare directive and a long form for a healthcare directive. Typically the long form is more all-encompassing, so that's something that you would fill out when you want to go more in depth than the short form. Additionally, the power of attorney. So a power of attorney is a wonderful alternative to guardianship. As I mentioned, it's in a way that you can help support somebody through the ABLE account as well. A power of attorney for caregivers and guardians too is, if you set it up specifically to say so, a power of attorney can cover your guardianship responsibilities for your child. So let's say that you wanted to go on vacation for 2 weeks, and in that 2 weeks you didn't want to make guardianship decisions, you could have somebody else step into that role through a power of attorney in your absence. So those are many of the future planning tools that we talk about with families. Trusts, wills, healthcare directives, all of those future planning pieces. I'll give us another few moments to see if any questions roll through. Thank you all for being here today. This webinar will be shared on our website as well. Please don't hesitate to call the ARC with any questions. Okay, I don't see any more questions coming through, so I'm going to end this webinar now. Thank you all, and don't forget to call the ARC Minnesota. Have a great day.